We're bringing you boots on the ground insight from the ranchers, conservationists, and partners who are helping to preserve the best of the Golden State for generations to come. Join the California Rangeland Trust for inspiring stories of resilience, innovation, and hope as we get tuned into the land.
Hello and welcome to another episode of Tune Into the Land. I am your host, Michael Delbar, CEO of the California Rangeland Trust. In recent years, we've seen a resurgence in interest and appreciation for the Western culture through TV shows, music, fashion, and more. With more and more people donning cowboy hats and boots, as an industry, it's our chance to open the gates and provide educational opportunities and resources for those looking to break into agriculture. With National Day of the Cowboy right around the corner on Saturday, the 27th of July, we thought it would be fitting to have on a special guest, a cowgirl who is committed to providing agricultural education in various forms to diverse communities both locally in California as well as throughout the world. Today, we are joined by Rizpah Bellard. Rizpah was recently named one of Cowgirl Magazine's 30 Under 30. With her newfound platform and experiences as a young Black rancher, she has devoted her time to connecting with underserved communities to show them that they too can be a cowboy, a cowgirl, and form their own connections to the land and to livestock. On this episode, Rizpah shares more about her work, her goals for her businesses, and how she is helping to bring more folks into the agricultural fold. With that, I'd like to welcome Rizpah to the podcast.
Good morning.
Rizpah, tell us how you got into ranching.
Yeah, so I was basically raised on a ranch in Gwenda, California, in Cowboy Valley. My mom is from Oakland. My dad's from Richmond. Both of them have some background in agriculture from their families. Mom's family's from Arkansas. Dad's side's from Texas, Louisiana area. But when their parents came to California, they were inner city. And when my dad wanted to go to college, he wanted to get into animal sciences. He did a lot of working with dairy cows in Fresno area. He went to Fresno State, worked with a lot of dairy cows. He eventually started up his own herd, really got into the big, cattle game. And by the time him and my mom had kids, we were just raised, on a ranch in Gwenda with sheep, goats, pigs, horses, cows, hunting, fishing, camping, hiking, everything outdoors in Cowboy Valley.
Very cool life. Very beautiful area, too.
Oh, beautiful, yes.
What do you love most about the ranching industry?
So to be honest with you, when I was a kid, I was real big on, being in nature and being in the wild and being a free child. And then, you have your awkward teen years and you go to college and you're like, I'm a little bit different. So I'm going to, try and tone it down a bit and not be as country and not be as, outdoorsy. But now that I'm an adult, pretty confident in myself, pretty sure in myself, my favorite thing about ranching is just the freedom that it provides. Especially as an entrepreneur in the ag industry, I'm able to do many things that I have my own personal interests. So for instance, I'm like a substitute teacher down in Fresno, but I still have livestock. I still can have, I still go out to my ranch. I have a lot of free time to volunteer. I have a lot of free time to, hang out with friends and stuff. So I think for me, the ranching industry, if you're, on the entrepreneurial side, provides a lot of freedom.
So you took that interest and desire to get into the ranching business or back into it and created Nova Farming.
Yes.
Tell us where the name Nova came from.
Yeah, so it's funny. So I was in my graduate program at the University of Denver in 2018. I had just started September 2018, and I did an internship down in Cali, Colombia in December 2018. And when I was down there, I was working with an agricultural nonprofit. They were working with ex-combatants against the government, part of the FARC, and they were using agriculture to reintegrate them back into society. So instead of growing cocaine, now they were growing, plantains, potatoes, strawberries, more crops that they could sell at farmers markets and for the community. And when I was there, I remember calling my dad and, I had already kind of had a little career doing something different prior to my grad program. And I remember calling my dad and I said, Daddy, I think that I want to get back into agriculture, but I want to use agriculture as a way to educate and reintegrate marginalized and minority populations in the States. And as I said that, I remember this clear as day, my dad was like, Rizpah, this is great because I've had the same vision for you for a long time. I was just waiting for you to come into it. So I said, okay, great. So in my grad program, I started taking more agricultural classes, more on the international level. One of my favorite classes was illicit markets in Americas. And we just looked at the drug trade, both in the States and in Central America and South America, but then also looking at like how it was covered up, with crops like avocados and stuff like that in Michoacan, Mexico. So I took a lot more classes in agriculture, took a couple classes in business. And by the time I graduated in 2020, came back home during the pandemic, things were kind of up in the air with everything. And my dad was just like, okay, Rizpah, you can either, try to find a job during the pandemic, or you can take over this company that I have for you. And that was Nova Farming. So he had already had the company. I think he was using it for something else, years prior. I think maybe like in 2015, 2016, he had it for something else. So by the time I came along, he was just like, now you can take this company, Nova Farming, go down to Fresno and make it happen. And so he kind of came up with the name. I recreated the logo because it was a clip art picture before. But now, I had my friend Amaya, she redesigned it for me. I gave her an idea and she made it, she worked it on Canva. And that's how Nova Farming came to be.
Why go back to Fresno?
So my dad had connections to Fresno for another company that I have. So that's my other company, Blind Essence. And through that, it's independent living. I provide housing for adults experiencing homelessness. He had some connects in Fresno. And also, I was in the Bay Area. It's a little bit too competitive to kind of get things going in the Bay Area, especially agriculture. And then I was going to get into mental health. And it takes a lot more money to get things going up in the Bay Area. Gwenda, not much is going on in that area. In Gwenda or like Davis, Sacramento area, wasn't a lot going to happen for me. And for my dad, he said, if you go to Fresno, you can really make a splash. So down there, I started doing independent living with my first company, Blind Essence, which is providing housing for adults experiencing homelessness. And at the same time, I was getting Nova Farming up and running by teaching agriculture in a mental health facility that I was working at the time. So kind of just getting both things going at the same time. And I really didn't have any opposition. It was financially more feasible down there. People were a little bit more receptive to new ideas, positive ideas for the community. And it was, my dad had a couple of friends who were able to support me and, in doing what I wanted to do. And yeah, there was no pushback. I didn't have I still don't have a lot of competition in doing what I'm doing. And I'm just able to kind of flow things pretty easily down there.
So with that, you have traveled immensely across all different countries.
Yes.
Where do you feel was the most challenging and most exciting travel-related experience that you've had?
Yeah, so I think since I'm fluent in Spanish, I prefer to travel to Spanish-speaking countries only because I can speak Spanish and I love speaking Spanish. But what I think will be the most challenging for me personally will be going to Africa. So my dad's done a lot of work in the western coast of Africa, and he was doing this back in the 70s, 80s, 90s when he was in college. And then after he got out, he was kind of getting his agriculture stuff going. So he did a lot of consulting. I mean, when I was a kid, I remember him going to Senegal for like a month at a time to help them with some type of like either crop or livestock production that they have going on in Senegal, Ivory Coast, Ghana. He was there a lot. Now he's taken my company back to Africa, to Nigeria. He was just there last year, and he's working with the Federal College in Akure, the agriculture side, in Akure, Nigeria, in Ondo State. And he's helping them get their livestock production up. So they have the Fulani cow. He's helping them breed it to have a better beef side and have a better dairy side because it's a hybrid cow, dual purpose cow. So they want to get better beef and better dairy. So he went there last year on behalf of my company to get that going. Now I'm waiting for my opportunity to go out there to kind of, to oversee what's going on, but also to really immerse myself in that, because what's going to happen with me in Africa is it's going to go beyond Nigeria. The hopes is to help other African states, get more livestock production going, or stronger livestock production going with better genetics, helping them, have better places like abattoirs and, dairy sites and all these other things that they need that we have in America that they don't have out there. So that'll be the next step, which would be the hardest step, is to really help these individual kind of countries see the future, or see the positive of what agriculture can do for them. So just bringing that opportunity to them, which my dad has done in a couple other African.
So is that the overall goal then of Nova Farming, is to expand those experiences, opportunities for these other countries, or what are the overall goals?
I'm not sure yet. I'm just kind of going, with it. One of the goals was to get into schools to teach agriculture. And I did that down in Fresno Unified School District. So I'll be set up to teach some, agricultural livestock classes this upcoming school year. I've already done a couple this last school year. I think the main goal of Nova Farming is to educate. So we want to educate and we want to expose other people to the ag industry and to give them opportunities that I have been privy to because of my dad, but then also give them opportunities and give them a helping hand because he didn't have that when he was coming into the industry, in the 80s and the 90s. So to really help Black and brown people, especially if we go to, Africa, helping Black people get into the ag industry on a level playing field with strong technology, strong equipment, strong, ideas so they can get going agriculturally. And so they're not, reliant on importing all their goods.
You mentioned Blind Essence.
Yes.
Tell us a little bit more about what does that do? What do you do with that organization?
Yeah, so Blind Essence, I'm a member of Fresno County's Independent Living Association. I've been Operator of the Year 2 years in a row now, so that means my houses are doing pretty good. I have 2 homes. Started in August 2021. I acquired my second home, which is a 14-bedroom home, in April 2022. Between my 2 homes, I have 15 tenants, and I think I'd say about 85 to 90% of my tenants have severe mental health disabilities. So what independent living is, it's kind of like a step up from boarding care or group homes in the kind of mental health space. So instead of, like at the lowest level is like a facility, a lockdown facility where folks with mental health disabilities aren't able to function in society. So they need serious medication, they need serious security, they need, somebody to cook, clean, feed them at all points in time. Then you kind of keep going, leveling up as they become more independent, as they're able to take their own meds, as they're able to prove to the courts, a lot of them are conserved, prove to the courts that they're able to take care of themselves and not be a harm to society or not return to drug usage. And then also take their meds to stay mentally stable. So my home is independent living, which is the last stop before they go to get their own apartment or go back to family, if that was an option for them. But between my 2 homes, 15 tenants, and a lot of my tenants have schizophrenia, schizoaffective disorder, severe bipolar disorder. I've had people who were ex-gang members, prostitutes, a lot of drug use, a lot of trauma in their household as children and in their adult household. A lot of, I think almost 95% of them were homeless at some point. So my job is just to provide a safe, shared, affordable housing space for them that all of my tenants have their own rooms. They have private rooms. They share a bathroom. They share the common spaces, share the kitchen, living rooms, dining room. They have outside smoking areas. One of my homes has a swimming pool. My other home has my livestock, smaller livestock. They have sheep, goats, pigs, all those things that they can interact with on a therapeutic level. Or if they want to work, they can do that as well. But yeah, Blind Essence is just helping people, providing housing for folks in need.
So on the surface, it seems like these are 2 complete different industries and focus areas.
Yes.
Do you see a nexus between the 2? Do they interact at all?
They do. And I think that goes back to like what my vision was in Colombia, was to bring agriculture to marginalized populations. And I really wanted it to be as like a space to provide a source of economic opportunity in the ag industry for people experiencing, severe hardships. But that'll be later on in the future once I kind of get more of a handle of what that employment opportunity could look like. But with my second home, I have agriculture, I have livestock for people who are like seriously disadvantaged, seriously on the fringes of society. And they're able to use the animals as coping mechanisms. They're able to use the animals as therapy. They're able to use the animals as just like a breath of fresh air. Like I have a tenant with autism who has episodes frequently, and he'll give me a call and I'll say, go outside. And what he does is he goes outside, he waters my animals. He literally waters the pony, waters the goat, literally puts water on the chicken, so he's doing these things as a way to calm down. Or if he's having a really rough time, when I come to the property to clean up pens, come outside with me and he's just talking to me while I'm cleaning pens. So it's a way for us to be out in nature, out in space. This property is 1.5 acres out in the county side. So you don't have houses around, you don't have cars, buses, motorcycles, people walking around. So it's a very safe space for people to find themselves, to become stable, to express their issues. I have therapists coming on property all the time, family members coming on the property all the time to work with their family members who are experiencing hardships, who are trying to get back stable, trying to get back better. So there is the nexus is that it's a therapeutic space for them. But I don't have like an animal therapist on hand who can really hold the pony while the person is expressing their feelings to the pony. But when I'm out there, people tell me all types of stuff about the hardship that they've experienced at 4 years old, their mom and dad, dad was not present, mom was on drugs, or raised by grandparents, or saw their brother get shot, at 11 years old. So a lot of different things that people have expressed to me just by standing outside, like on grass and with animals.
It's amazing what being around an animal, particularly farm animal,
yes,
does for someone, whether
yes.
it's a horse or a chicken or whatever it
yes.
may be, that it really seems to calm and open folks up.
Yes, it does.
So you represent a very small minority in the ranching industry. What is it like to be a young Black woman in the ranching industry in this area.
Yeah, it's interesting, and especially in California, I think I'm like the only Black woman that is doing ag on a larger scale. I've come across, like on social media, Black women in California who are like maybe community gardening, or they have like little chickens in their background, or they're trying to get into homesteading. But in California, from what I've seen, what I've experienced, I'm like the only young Black woman who's doing this. And that's because my dad was able to do it. So, a lot of Black folks in California, we like our family members ran away from the South, ran away from agriculture because of the history of slavery and sharecropping, the negative aspects of it. So when they came to California, they're looking for education. They're looking for inner city life. They're looking for other opportunities outside of putting hands in the soil. But my dad went back to ag, and then he was able to raise my brothers and I in ag. So for me, like I've always been in ag, and then we've gone to, whenever we've done any ranch work, working with livestock or cattle, we've been on Black ranches, Black farms. So there's been other Black families who were doing the same thing that we're doing, but their kids didn't want to continue it. So I think that I'm the only one from the group of people that when we would go to roundups, or we'd go work cattle, or we'd go visit other family and friends, I'm like the only one that's getting back into the industry. But again, I've seen like a different need for it, or a different desire for it. Other folks have been going into tech, or they're going into education, or they're going into higher education, stuff like that. But I don't even really feel alone though, because it's just me. It's just something that I've always done. It's something that's always been a part of me. I mean, my mom was a cowgirl, is a cowgirl, so I had a pretty good example of what it's like to, ride a horse with no fear, shoot with no problem, really do things that I guess boys and men do with like no hesitation. So it's just been a part of me. So now that I'm in it as a Black woman, it's just always been me. Granted, there was a time where I tried to hide it from some people, but you grow up. But it's just always been a part of me.
This has to have come with some challenges.
Well, and that's the interesting thing, is because my dad took all the challenges in the 80s and 90s, I haven't had to experience many challenges. So he experienced a lot of the racism and discrimination. He experienced a lot of the undercutting from other folks. He experiencing, white men really keeping him out of the ag industry. And he's had to figure out how to make a way for himself. So now that I'm coming back into it, he has a plethora of wisdom, knowledge, and ideas and ways to make it happen for me, that I'm literally just walking a path that kind of has no obstacles. And then also we're in a year that people are really, and I'm just talking like in 2000s, people are really trying to make a way for minorities in agriculture. The USDA FSA has agreed. They said, look, we've done some discrimination in the past. We really want to right our wrongs. And this is how we're trying to give loans. We're trying to help people out. Granted, there's no more land to buy up with those loans, but they're really trying to rectify their wrongs. So for me, the challenges are really just selling myself to people to buy my educational programming, buy my beef, buy my ideas. Let me teach more people to get into the ag industry. It's really just pushing what I know to people to buy. But I mean, running the animal part, that's easy. that's no problem. But really getting a market, finding a large buyer, finding somebody to take a chance. I mean, my beef is no different than a white man's beef. It's all beef. So just really letting somebody to take an opportunity on me, and then I'll sort from there. But I think the more discrimination and racism is not, I don't want to say it's not as bad, but I haven't seen it, because my dad, he dealt with all that back in the day.
So your network of other young ranchers or those wanting to get into ranching.
Yes.
You've talked about the challenges that you had, and fortunately your father helped pave a lot of the way for you. What other challenges are you seeing in your generation in wanting to get into ranching?
So a lot of people, one, it's knowledge. So knowledge of the ag industry. Like I said, I knew about it because I was raised in it. So I'm familiar with being on large swaths of land and having no cell phone reception. I'm familiar with going out into a dirt country road, and you don't know where you're going until you hit that county road 44 and you're like, okay, this is where I'm at. Also knowledge of the animals, knowledge of, what am I going to do if someone got injured? Am I going to put it down, or am I going to try to take it to the vet, which is cheaper? So just really understanding that. But land, people don't have access to land. People don't have access to somebody lease it to them or sell it to them. And then people also don't. I think that people who have been leasing, the lessees, the person who's been leasing hasn't treated the property well. So they don't want to keep leasing to folks who don't have years of experience to, take care of their land. Young people just have, again, probably they don't have an opportunity for somebody to take a chance on them. But when you're kind of getting in the game and just work some cows or work some sheep or do some goat raising, you don't really have time for people to take a chance on you when you have, 2,000 acres that need to be eaten down before fire season comes. You don't have the opportunity for somebody to take a chance on you when you have, trying to run a dairy operation and no cows are milking. It's kind of like these things have to have been known so you can get in the game, get some money, show some type of income going. So that's I think that's something that a lot of young people probably are struggling with. Again, we live in a society, we live in a time where things have to happen fast. And with ag, long time, things take a long time. It takes a long time to birth a cow. It takes a long time to wean the cow. It takes a long time for the cow to mature. It takes a long time for corn to grow. It takes a long time for tomatoes to grow. Everything dies, so it takes a long time. And I think people who aren't used to the ag industry or aren't used to farming and ranching, they're not used to that long time that they have to wait. So they want something to happen faster. They want opportunities to happen faster. I mean, I've even caught myself saying, dang, why can't they just, I'm smart, I know what I'm doing, but it takes a long time for even just the processes of paperwork, processes of people to, really figure out who you are and what you're doing. That takes a while as well. Now, you do have a lease down in Kern County. Yes. On the Bufford Ranch, which is conserved by the Rangeland Trust. Yes. What's that like? And how's working with Ernest? Yeah, so I'm not gonna lie. The first time you've driven down there. The first time my dad, took me down there, I was like, "Where are we going?" And like I said, in the middle of nowhere. Oh, I'm used to going to the middle of nowhere, but I've never been on a road that doubles back on itself multiple times while other cars are coming down at the same time. That was driving up to Walker Basin was an interesting drive. And it's crazy. I get motion sick going up on my own, like just driving on my own. I have to take Dramamine before I hit the road because I'm like, all right, those turns are a little bit too much for me. But the area is just beautiful. It's just, driving into Walker Basin, once you come off of I think it's called Lion's Tail or something like that, off of that really windy road, it's just beautiful to look at. You have Rankin Ranch at the bottom, then you have the mountains right in front of you. It's just a beautiful area to be in. It's hidden, for good reason, but it's so beautiful. And then working with Mr. Bufford it's been a treat. Isn't he amazing? Oh, he's amazing. Working on the ranch it's a lot of fun. His house is there. I've got my cows there, working on a lot of fencing and stuff after the fire and stuff. But it's cool for me to see what my dad was doing when he was in his 20s and 30s. And now I'm doing the same thing of running large, acreage with cows and, just making it work. So it's fun. Well, everything you've been doing got the attention of Cowgirl Magazine. Yes. And named you one of the 30 under 30 this last year. Tell us about that program and how were you selected? Yeah, so Cowgirl Magazine 30 under 30, I think that now that when I was coming back into the ag industry and I was like, okay, I want to be back into cowboying and all this stuff in 2021, I was looking for opportunities for ways that I could, one, connect with more folks in the industry, but also two, I wanted to show people what I was doing because I wanted to show people that the ag industry is cool, Western is cool, get more people involved. So I think it was maybe 2022 sometime, I think I Googled something about Cowgirl opportunity or Cowgirl Magazine or something like that, because I hadn't heard of Cowgirl Magazine prior to, maybe, and it's more popular in the South, mainly Texas. But Cowgirl Magazine 30 under 30 came up and I had about a 2-week window to apply because the opportunity, the deadline was coming up soon. And I put my application together. Mr. Bufford was one of my letter of recommendation and I sent it off. And the following year, I think maybe 4 or 5 months later, I heard back that I was selected. And I was just so excited because I was like, this is great. Now, granted, I was getting back into things and I was like, okay, cool. This is a great opportunity to showcase what I've been doing. Then I got out there in Fort Worth in, I think February of this year. I think it was February, March of this year, was out in Fort Worth. And, it's just, it was a great opportunity to be around other young women in the ag industry that I hadn't seen. And there was a couple of girls from California who are working mainly on the coast. Marissa Fisher's up at UC Davis working with their beef program. But there was a lot of young women in the ag industry that I just hadn't seen. But then again, these are opportunities. These are ag careers. And I'm like, this is great because now I can expose more people to these agriculture careers. So I'm writing down job titles. I'm writing down, so what was your path? How'd you get there? So I can go back and tell kids in Fresno, if you want this opportunity, if this is the pay that you want, if this is the lifestyle that you want, if this is, you want to drive a truck, you want to drive a Tesla, what do you want to drive? These are the jobs that you can do, you know? So I had a great time just doing my own research to take back to those who don't know about the ag industry. And then being there, meeting the staff, meeting everybody was just a great opportunity. It was a great time to, again, just meet more people in the ag industry. And we went to a bunch of they really spoil you with boots and hats and clothes and shoes. And oh man, it was just a great time. I loved it. And I told them, I was like, I'll be there every year, you know, as an alumni to support, because I think it's a great opportunity to showcase women in the ag industry.
Well, it's a very big honor and congratulations.
Thank you.
That. Very exciting as it sounds like, but what does it really mean to you to have been selected? What's deep down, what does that mean?
Yeah, so I think for me personally, well, just to be honest with you, going to Fort Worth, if my boyfriend wasn't with me, I would have been the only Black person. So in a room full of maybe 300, 350, you know, people in the ag industry, I don't think that anybody was Latina. I don't think that anybody, maybe Native, but everybody else was white. And so to be like the Black person representing for the ag industry, that was a strong kind of, I felt really strong and I felt really solid in what I am doing in the ag industry. And then I had a documentary filmed on me, and it was just like, everybody was just like, wow, like you really are the real deal. And I was just, you know, I really just carried that with like honor and pride, because again, this is something that I was raised doing, and most people don't know Black people do this. I mean, even now I've people who I meet and they're like, I didn't know Black people had cows. I didn't know, especially not in California. So for me to showcase that to folks, it was just like a kind of like a badge of honor to be the only Black person. But I don't want to always be the only Black person, but I'm also aware that these opportunities aren't open to everybody because they just don't know, or they don't have, you know, the experience, the childhood, the upbringing, the wisdom like I do. But for me to really just be like picked was like, I mean, it's almost like a sorority or something. Just because I had heard of some girls who were going like 2-3 years in a row applying, and they finally got it. And I was like, wow, this is like pretty top. I mean, and I have a Fulbright Scholar Award, and I'm like, this is up there with that. So it was, I mean, I just really feel honored. And like I said, I'll be going to all the events that they have as an alumni and just supporting wherever I can that Cowgirl Magazine needs me.
So what are you going to do with this platform? Because you have a unique position here. How are you going to capitalize on that? So
what I'm doing on the back end is really getting my markets together to really showcase, because like I have my herd, and it's now we're going into weeding. We're going into getting my calves to go into a feedlot or kind of raise them on pasture before we get them to a place that I'm going to sell. But really pushing beef. So really pushing the sale of beef, because my thing for Cowgirl Magazine was, you know, I'm a beef producer, right? Like I'm a rancher. So now that I'm like really getting into the stage of like, okay, everything that I have is coming to, it's coming to a head. Like I'm coming to a place where things are working out. Like I might have a big time buyer. You know, I'm looking at what does that look like for me? And then shouting it from the rooftops, like telling people how to do this, telling people how to get here, and Black, brown, white, yellow, male, female, whatever, just telling them how to get into the industry or what it can look like, and help them figure out different parts that they want to get into in the ranching life. You don't have to be the person working with the cattle, but you can be the vet, you can be the loan, you know, you can be giving out the loans, you can be leasing land, you know, you could be surveying, you could be a soil tester, you know, all these different things that you can do to help the ag and cattle industry. Mainly ranching. So just really showing people how to get where I'm headed and where I will be at. You talked about when you were younger, you kind of hid your interest in your lifestyle. We're starting to see, at least I think we're starting to see another shift in more folks wanting to be part of that Western culture, Western lifestyle. They tend to come in waves. Yeah. We saw it back in the urban cowboy days when the movie came out, and all of a sudden there was a big interest in it. Then it kind of subsided. Now there's a big interest again. What do you see is the cause of that shift, and how do you feel about that shift? So I have to say Beyonce. I think that Beyonce is really bringing a push back for the Western industry. Granted, she's worked in all genres because she can, and her roots are back in Houston in the South, really in Western industry, Western music. So I think that she's done a large push for the minority community, and then also the young community, like the young pop kind of people who listen to the radio type community. She's had a couple good hits with that. But also I think that Western is becoming like the Western like fashion is becoming like a vibe. It's becoming a thing. Like people are wearing cowboy hats and cowboy boots to Coachella. I don't know if you've ever been to Coachella, but it's hot. Like I've been to Coachella. I would wear the cowboy hat, but not the boots. It's just really hot out there. But it's like the Western style is coming back. And it's funny because I remember when I was a kid, we'd go to roundups and, everybody's black there. And you'd have the one guy coming out of a Mercedes Benz and he pulled up on the dirt road and he's got ostrich boots on, a nice a black suede hat in the middle of the summer, and then like starched his pants, ironed down, Levi's, Wranglers. But he didn't have a horse, he didn't have a cow, he didn't have anything, but he was Western. And so I've always seen like the Western style is something that people like because people like Western movies. They like Clint Eastwood, they like those old Western movies, they like the style, they like the bad boy thing, they like the kind of the rebel rouser. And I think people have always liked Western movies. I don't know if people watch too many old Westerns now, but we have some newer Westerns coming out. But I just noticed that people have always liked to wear a cowboy hat for some reason. Like people really like cowboy hats and cowboy boots. And I think that's coming back with, I even have like a neon pair of cowboy boots that I'm probably never going to wear, but I got them in Texas. I'm like, these are nice fashion boots. So yeah, I think that Beyonce for one, but also just the style I think is coming back. Like you said, it ebbs and flows and it's back in style.
So how do you see or should the ranching industry, agriculture industry capitalize on this?
I think that we should take more people under our wing for those who are interested in the actual lifestyle of ranching, right? So I can't remember if I had like read about a study in like Idaho, Iowa, or somewhere up north, but for older folks who have a lot of land, who they don't have family who maybe wants to take over it, they're using like this mentorship / they're putting the property in a trust, but they're getting a young first generation farmer or rancher who wants to take over their property, and they're bringing them under their wing to teach them kind of what to do on the land, how to take care of the land, how to farm, how to ranch, whatever their specialty is. And they're teaching younger people who are interested in that to come over and, run their property once they pass, especially if they're under a trust, to help keep things going. I think that, as ranchers, we have to do a better job of looking outside of our family for takeover, for somebody to do what we've been doing for years, especially because a lot of ranchers and farmers, their kids don't necessarily want to go into that space, especially if they've gone to a college in a different city or a different state and they've had different opportunities, given to them, or they've been exposed to traveling. They're like, maybe I want to do something different. And they'll probably come back like I did. But we have to really take people who are seriously interested in the Western industry, the hard work, the early mornings, late nights, the deaths, the birds, all that stuff, take them under our wings and teach them what we know. So don't just hold it to ourselves and, and just say like, this is my information. I'm not going to tell anybody, because everybody needs to eat. There's enough money out there for everybody to get. Ranching and farming has been a long part of our history, of the United States of America's history. We have to continue it. And then again, that's going to go out to other countries, right? So I'm big on like international ag. So helping other countries get their food source up. So they're not always importing. They're not always just, waiting for, if there's no eggs today, they don't have any eggs. They have a way to supply long term, just like we do in America. They have a way to supply multiple options when they go to a grocery store, just like we do here in America.
So you're fortunate to run on the Buffered Ranch, as we talked about.
Yes.
That ranch is under a conservation easement with the Rangeland Trust. It's always going to be the way it is today.
Yes.
And that's very, very special. And it's a very special place, as you mentioned. What is the importance in your eyes of continuing to protect these lands, these working lands? Because without those livestock can't be raised.
Yes.
And we're not going to have that food security. We're not going to have all those benefits of that open space, the wildlife habitat,
yes,
clean water, clean air. All that is going to be gone if we lose that. And we're losing way too many of these acres, 2,000 acres a day across the country.
Yes.
So in your opinion, how important is it to protect these working ranges in California?
I think
and across the country, really.
Yes, I think it's extremely important. I think that, conserving lands and keeping something for specifically farmland or for livestock or, just preserve it so people can look at it is important. We have a lot of people, a lot of people moving to California, but, the population in the States is blowing up a little bit. We have a lot of people needing housing. So we have a lot of big companies coming over, as we were seeing at the conservation, the summit in Stockton. That big corporation is coming in and just taking swaths of land in. I think it's like, I don't know the city, but like outside of Vacaville area, just buying up land
Solano County, just
buying up land to put in housing, right? Buying up farmland to put in housing. I think that conserving land is important because we need food. Like the land that we use to grow food is to feed Americans, to feed the military, to feed those in need. We need to continue to have space to feed people. We need to continue to have space to keep the environment clean. You know, like you have to have a place. I went to a talk in at Piscina's Ranch over in like outside of Hollister area, and learning a lot about soil conservation and learning about like the importance of carbon in the ground and carbon going out the ground. And there's all types of arguments right now about methane emission and cows burping and cows farting and all this other stuff. But, it's important to have a space where we can grow food, raise food, keep wildlife, keep the habitat going, get the birds. I met somebody from Audubon Conservation. We were talking about birds in the area and, what you can do to bring more birds, like natural birds native to the area, bring them back to your ranch or your farmland. And all of that's important in keeping the ecosystem going. But again, we need somewhere to feed people. We can't just confined to 25 acres to grow, cows or sheep or goats. We have to have space spread out so animals can walk, animals can roam, animals can eat, animals can poop. All these things need to happen that we need land for.
Very well said.
Thank you.
So Rizpah, thank you. You are an extremely busy young lady, and I know you're traveling all the way up from Kern County to your family's home in Gwenda. You're in Fresno. So taking some time out of all those travels to spend it with us, we really, really appreciate that. It was a great conversation, and thank you for being part of this.
Thank you for having me. I loved it. Thank you.
We hope that you enjoyed this episode of Tune Into the Land. If you'd like to connect more with the work that Rizpah is doing, you can find her on Instagram at nova.farming, or you can visit her website at agnovafarming.com. This closes the gate on another episode of Tune Into the Land. Be sure to hit that follow button so you can be notified when the next episode is released. Thanks for listening.